Congressional Progressive Caucus withdraws letter that tepidly calls for diplomacy in Ukraine. Unprecedented decline in U.S. child poverty, down 59% in 26 years. U.S. math and reading scores crashed during COVID. Saudi Arabia denies MBS mocks U.S. president. American Muslim of the Year award goes to Ohio student athlete Noor Abukaram at 28th Annual CARE Banquet. International Journalist Organization condemn murder of Arshad Sharif. From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight. On Tuesday, the Congressional Progressive Caucus withdrew a letter expressing support for diplomatic negotiations to end Russia's war on Ukraine. The document's 30 signatories faced heavy criticism and backlash. This was from fellow Democrats, party leaders, and pundits on social media. Representative Pramila Jayapal is a Washington Democrat and the chair of the Progressive Caucus. She said the letter addressed to President Joe Biden was drafted several months ago, but unfortunately was released by staff without vetting. She said the message's timing is being equated by some with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's threatening to end aid to Ukraine if Republicans take over. Jayapal said it created the appearance that Democrats are aligned with Republicans who seek to pull the plug on American support for President Zelensky and their Ukrainian forces. Opponents of gun violence on Tuesday urged Americans to vote for Democratic candidates who support common sense safety measures. This call comes after police said the 19-year-old gunman who killed a teacher and a 15-year-old student at a St. Louis high school this week was armed with an AR-15 style rifle and more than 600 rounds of ammunition. On Monday, Orlando Harris opened fire at Central Visual and Performing Arts High School. He killed sophomore Alexandria Bell and 61-year-old physical education teacher Jean Kustka. The shooter wounded several other students, authorities said. Police officers killed Harris, who graduated from the school last year in an exchange of gunfire. St. Louis Police Commissioner Michael Sack said Harris was armed with almost a dozen 30-round high-capacity magazines. The past quarter century witnessed an unprecedented decline in child poverty rates in the United States. Today, roughly 1 in 10 children live in families whose economic resources are below the poverty line, a 59% drop over the last 26 years. In 1993, the numbers were more than 1 in 4 children. The magnitude of this decline in child poverty is unequaled in the history of poverty measurements in the United States. A report from research group Child Trends took a detailed look at what led to this decline. Lower unemployment rates and higher single-mother labor force participation can account for some of these results. Also playing a role were a decrease in the number of children in immigrant families, lower rates of teen pregnancies, an increase in the rates of children living in two-parent households. The report concludes between 1993 and 2019, poverty rates declined at similar rates for nearly every subgroup of children examined. American students saw big declines in reading and math scores after years of disrupted learning due to the pandemic. The National Assessment of Education Progress, also known as the Nation's Report Card, released full data Monday for the first time since 2019. The 2021 exams were postponed a year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. NAEP assessed a representative sample of 4th and 8th graders, finding reading scores dropped back to 1992 levels. Mathematics scores slid back to 2003 levels. 1/4 of 4th graders and nearly 4 in 10th, 8th graders failed to grasp basic concepts. U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona said this is a moment of truth for education. He added, "How we respond to this will determine not only our recovery, but our nation's standing in the world." Research has shown shuttered schools during pandemic lockdowns restricted students' learning opportunities. They also hit those from lower income families and ethnic minorities the hardest. The Council on American Islamic Relations will recognize Ohio student athlete and activist Noor Abukaram as the American Muslim of the Year at its 28th annual banquet on October 29th. Abukaram was on the cross-country running team at Ohio's Sylvania Northview High School in October 2019. She was disqualified from her track meet because of her hijab. After her experience went viral on social media, Abukaram worked with Ohio Senator Teresa Gavarone to draft Senate Bill 288. The legislation prohibits schools and interscholastic organizations from adopting rules banning the wearing of religious apparel during athletic events. The bill was signed into law in February by Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. Abukaram's story has inspired nationwide efforts to protect the right to wear religious clothing in athletics. A group of Arizona voters is seeking a temporary restraining order against a right-wing group it accuses of intimidation at ballot drop box locations. An association for retirees and an organization for Latino voters filed a federal lawsuit alleging Clean Elections USA and its founder Melody Jennings were violating the Voting Rights Act and civil rights law. They accused the group of a coordinated campaign of vigilante voter intimidation, according to CNN. The lawsuit alleges organized vigilante groups have already turned voters away. It highlights 3 complaints submitted to election officials in the state. They allege the group, sometimes armed volunteers, were photographing voters' license plates and accusing voters of dropping off phony ballots. The Arizona Secretary of State's office has referred those complaints and others to the U.S. Department of Justice. Saudi Arabia denies that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman mocked U.S. President. Details come after the break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today.
I am what hunger looks like in America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. justice for all.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. Saudi Arabia has denied reports that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman mocks U.S. President Joe Biden in private sessions. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan said that the kingdom's leaders have always respected U.S. presidents. He stressed that the allegations are completely false. The Wall Street Journal cited Saudi sources saying the Crown Prince makes fun of Biden's gaffes and questions his mental acuity in private. The journal reports sources said bin Salman has told advisors he hasn't been impressed with Biden since his days as vice president and that he prefers former President Donald Trump. White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre described the allegations as ridiculous. He said Biden has been clear about reviewing the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia. Global journalist associations have condemned the murder of Pakistani journalist Arshad Sharif on Sunday in Kenya. Groups have called for immediate and speedy investigations into the case. Sharif was shot by Kenyan police officers at a roadblock in Kajiado County, about an hour's drive from the capital, Nairobi. Kenyan police have said they mistook the car he was traveling in for a reportedly stolen one after it ran through a roadblock. The International Federation of Journalists said Sharif was living in hiding after fleeing Pakistan in August, following the filings of multiple sedition cases against him. Anthony Ballinger, IFJ's Secretary General, said journalists should be able to live without fear of political retribution or assassination. The Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists, Kenya's Union of Journalists, and Africa's Foreign Press Association echoed Ballinger's statements. In Pakistan, the Journalists Union has launched nationwide protests demanding an international-level investigation into Sharif's murder. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called the Kenyan president demanding a fair and transparent investigation into Sharif's death. A special segment on the death of journalist Arshad Sharif is coming up later tonight in our show, so keep watching Muslim News. In recent years, voters in Indonesia have supported candidates with solid religious personas whose lifestyles and appearances adhere to Islamic values. The world's largest Muslim-majority democracy has seen an increasingly trend toward Islamic piety. That's according to a paper published by researchers Haryanto Rizkika Lehna Darwin in the non-profit independent news organization The Conversation. Many political candidates have been taking advantage of social media to design campaigns promoting piety. Female political candidates have started to use social media to bring about social change and encourage women to become politically engaged. During the 2019 election, many Indonesian women running for political office used social media to bolster their Islamic image. Research shows creating an Islamic image on social media helps female candidates increase their electability and supports female participation and representation. In 2019, female candidates accounted for nearly 42% of all candidates vying for 30 seats, the General Election Commission reports. Biocell collagen, a clinically studied dietary supplement, ingredient used for more than 20 years is now recognized as Halal certified by the Islamic Information Documentation and Certification, GmbH. The certification is accepted in nearly all Islamic countries, including those with the most rigorous standard. Mohammed Ishaq, CEO of Biocell Technology, said more consumers are looking for the Halal certification as it affirms the product's commitment to safety and health. Biocell collagen is amongst the few science-backed dietary supplement ingredients. It has undergone more than a decade of research, including 7 human clinical trials. It also provides internal support for healthy connective tissues and joints, the company claims. A Swiss foundation will be funding the conservation of a medieval church and mosque in Cyprus. The Technical Committee on Cultural Heritage in Cyprus and the UN Development Programme signed a nearly $1 million grant with the Swiss Foundation on Monday. The 2 targeted sites for conservation works are St. George of Latin's Church in Famagusta and Tuzla Mosque in Larnaca. This is the first search partnership between the Technical Committee, UNDP, and the Swiss Foundation. The Tuzla Mosque, situated in the old part of Larnaca, was originally a medieval church built on the foundations of a basilica. The church was converted into a mosque during the Ottoman period. The St. George of the Latin's Church is the oldest Gothic architecture monument in Famagusta's walled city. Greek Cypriot chair of the Technical Committee, Sotos Ketroris, said that the grant was a message of peace. Ali Tunke, Cloris' Turkish Cypriot counterpart, said it's important to preserve monuments from all civilizations that have left their mark on Cyprus. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour, walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. To talk about the developments after the death of renowned Pakistani TV host and journalist Arshad Sharif, let's go to Edward Ahmed Mitchell. Over to you, Edward.
Thank you, Samana. And now we move to Pakistan to discuss the murder of a journalist who was renowned there and around the world, killed while he was in the country of Kenya. To discuss his murder, why it may have happened, who was responsible, and what impact this has had on people in Pakistan and the industry of journalists in Pakistan, we're very happy to welcome on our special guest, Murtaza Dar, who is, some of you may know, a prominent Pakistani journalist and television host. And we're very happy to have him here to discuss this sad and horrific development. So first, Assalamu alaikum, Murtaza, thank you so much for joining us today, especially, on these difficult circumstances, the loss of one of your colleagues. Can you first tell us, what happened to this journalist, to Arshad? Well, what happened to him?
Right. So there's this news that popped around late in the night here in Pakistan, around 4 a.m. in the morning, and it was the Monday morning, actually, and the Sunday night, and the news was really shocking. And the news was about that Arshad Sharif, a renowned journalist who is not in Pakistan, who has actually fled away from Pakistan a couple of months ago. He's been shot dead. So at the first moment, it was like, it was something which was not, acceptable to the most of the people here and along with the journalists. So it took us around like 20, 30 minutes to, just collect the news. And finally we got the confirmation. Right after that, things just were there on television screens, and everyone was talking about that, how this has happened. So the thing which actually came in front of us all after this, whatever has happened, is that he was shot dead. And he was stopped by the police there in Kenya while he was on his way from a shooting range where he went with the guy Abukaram Ahmed for some leisure time. And while he was on his way from there to Nairobi, which is like 80 or 90 kilometers away from that shooting area, he was stopped by the police, and they stopped them with help of some stones, putting the stones on the road, and they didn't stop. So when they didn't stop, they just shot at them. And now the question is why they wanted to stop them, because they got a call, as per police, of a stolen vehicle, which also includes a child in that. So they were trying to track and trace that car, and they mixed that car with Sharif's car, and they didn't stop, and they just, shot on that car 9 times. And luckily, the driver who was driving the car did not get hit by any of the shots, and Arshad Sharif got a bullet in his head, and he died. So this is the version which the Kenyan police has given to all of the masses of the media. And some of the people are buying this and some are not. And then when this news came, the local officials here contacted the people in Kenya, and they want to get information from them that what exactly has happened. So from both sides, the information which came was that he was shot by the police with a mistake, a human error, and this is exactly what has happened. Since this has happened with a person who is a journalist, who is an investigative journalist, who is on run, he fled from his country, he went to UAE first, and then there were reports that UAE authorities were not allowing him to stay there. And there were also reports that there was a pressure on them to send him back to Pakistan, but they somehow helped him, and he fled from there to Kenya, or they gave him an option. So when he went to Kenya, this all happened.
So Murtaza, tell us more about Arshad. Who was he? Why was he important to journalists in Pakistan? And why had he fled the country? What happened to him? What was the concern?
Arshad was basically an investigative journalist, and he is there and always there on all those stories, which require some kind of investigative work. And he's been exposing and working against all those cartels, or those criminals, or all those people sitting in the power corridors who have ever done any kind of corruption, and he's been exposing that. And lately, the information we got was that he was working on a documentary which was about to expose some of those things, which might have come as a surprise for many people, some of the masses and some of the people that he's going to expose or thought of exposing. So this was mainly his work. He has also worked as in his initial days as a reporter. He has also worked in the newsroom as a director of news as well. He has also worked as a bureau chief as well. He has also worked as an anchor as well. So lately he was working as an anchor and was doing investigative journalism. And he was considered one of those people who were the critique of especially Pakistan Muslim League Noor, one of those parties which has ruled the country for like a couple of times, 3 or 4 times in different parts and in different stages, and the Sharif family. So he exposed their corruption to a great extent. And some of people here think that exposing them is one of the things which costed him, but this is just theories like many of the theories which are going on the social media and elsewhere right now. And there are lots of things and facts which still needs to be done. But as you have asked about his work, it was more about following the story, not just running the mill, but thinking and digging deep down to all those facts which are not brought in front of the people. And so his efforts for all this to bringing all those things in front of people actually.
Understood. Now, his decision to leave the country, what was he coming under some sort of legal threat? Was he getting, violent threats? What made him decide to leave Pakistan for his safety?
He has mentioned this a few times that he's been threatened by some authorities and some officials to stop doing this, whatever he's doing. And he was doing, of course, his work, which was an investigative journalism. Also, there were FIRs, which is the first information report, like, filing a complaint against someone. And FIRs got registered against him frequently, swiftly, rapidly, like 25, 26 FIRs altogether against him. So he was being basically circled by the authorities, as he mentioned, legally on a legal ground or a legal platform, which would put pressure on him. He might would have to go to jail, and his possibility he can get arrested by the police and authorities. So basically, what we all get is he wanted to escape from this all and to continue his work. Because they getting hold of him is something which would stop his work. So he never wanted to stop his work. He wanted to continue his work, and for that he thought of a solution. And for that he went from there to UAE, the reports that we got. And when he went there in an effort to continue his work, the authorities here in Pakistan reached the UAE authorities and asked them and pressurized them and pushed them to send him back. So they gave him an option that, okay, we won't send you back, but we're gonna let you stay here. So think of any other country or your country and go back. So from there he went to Kenya. This is the reports that we've got, and whatever happened with him, I've just told you that happened in Kenya.
So what is the impact of his murder had in Pakistan among the people in general and among Pakistani journalists? Where does the country go from here? I think you noted there are some suspicions, as now unproven. But what's the impact of this on the people and on journalists in Pakistan?
People are not buying this at all, that he's been shot with a mistake by the police of Kenya. Everyone, or most of the people here, knows it, or the thing, or the belief that he's been killed. And it's a target killing that has happened with him. And he's been killed because somebody has crossed his limits. And he has exposed, or he was trying to expose some of those people sitting in the power corridor, which was beyond his limits. And some believe that he was shot or he was killed by those who he already exposed. So in other way around, or you think either way, most of the people that I get, they know he got killed. No accident happened, no mistake happened. So he paid the price of what he was doing.
So then what happens next? If there are questions about his murder and who was actually responsible, if you've got, this kind of chilling incident for journalists in Pakistan, where do you think this goes next? Is the Pakistani government going to do anything to investigate on its own what happened here? What is there? The family has to intervene. What do you think happens next?
The government has, of course, reached the Kenyan government, and the current prime minister has called the president of Kenya and asked him to do some fair and free investigations. But this, I guess, is just a routine call or a formality that gets done. I mean, it may have some, of course, they would think that the prime minister has called up and they're following the case, but the results would not be different or whatever Kenyans have decided they would do it. They've also sent local authorities of Pakistan also sent a team of two people in Kenya to investigate and to find out, to dig the facts about his murder. And this definitely would based on the support and help they're going to get from the Kenyan authorities. And now this is a question that how much would they help them in order to, investigate that whatever they would want to investigate. But also another thing that Prime Minister of Pakistan has requested in order to form a judicial commission. But if we look at the history, we do not get any solid results with the judicial commissions or the committees or the investigation teams or the JITs, whoever tried digging out the attacks on journalists in Pakistan. I can quote you many examples, even the example of Hamid Mir, one of the renowned journalists of Pakistan, who was attacked in 2014, like 8 years ago. There was a judicial commission formed who was tasked to tell that what actually happened with him. After 8 years, he survived through TV. He's alive. After 8 years, he could not get hold of the findings of those judicial commission's report. So I, along with many other journalists, believe that this is just an eyewash, and this is just to fulfill the formalities, and nothing would come out. Arshad is gone, like many other journalists in Pakistan and across the world, of course, like Jamal Khashoggi is another example of it. I mean, the blame game continues and the culprits never get caught. And this is exactly what is going to happen in this case as well.
It is disturbing to think of how many journalists, Jamal Khashoggi, Shireen Abu Akleh, now Arshad, have been killed in recent years. I assume that this murder, whatever was behind it, is only going to embolden Pakistani journalists to do their job, more fiercely, more resolutely. Do you say that's the case, or do you think, frankly, some journalists might be afraid to dive into certain stories?
Edward believes that it has its impact. I mean, the purpose is to stop someone from doing whatever the person was doing and to send a message. They stop the person and they've sent a message. But this is for a short time. It would remain here, but the fear would go away. Time, circumstances, and things do change many things. This will go on, and I mean, it's like a seesaw. This is their time. Well, ever thought of stopping, they should end it stop. And they've sent their message of fear, and they would have it for some time, not more than for a longer time. After best of some time, the journalism would not stop. Another Al-Shashidi would come, would rise, and this would go on. So it's like a seesaw. I mean, it goes turn by turn. This is the turn of those who have stopped pressure, and who are stopped would stop for some time, but they would continue their work and they would rise. And the next few maybe months, weeks, I don't know, but soon.
All right. Thank you again, Murtaza, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We look forward to having you back in the future, inshallah, to gather more information about the investigation, any new developments. And again, our condolences to you, to all the journalists in Pakistan, and to the family of Arshad. Thank you again so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll send it back to you, Hena.
Thank you so much, Edward. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.